Hi, you're watching an opinion review in 2, brought to you by www.ocregister.com/opinion. Watch as our editorial writers share a brief word about local, state, national, and international issues.
Hi, I'm Mark Landsbaum, and I'm an editorial writer at the Orange County Register. I'd like to talk to you a little bit today about global warming. Bad information, like lies, can get halfway around the world before the truth even gets its shoes on, to paraphrase an old saying. And sadly, I think we found that to be the case with global warming scare stories. Worse yet, these scare stories are used to persuade people to do things that they otherwise wouldn't even think of doing, things that are generally and often against their own interests. They tend to move the government to set up artificial standards for things that have to do with how you live your life, like how much of something can be used by private individuals, private companies, things like gasoline or other petroleum products, or things like coal or natural gas. Suddenly those things are restricted in their use, and the market is interfered with, and their prices become artificially inflated or deflated, and it's unfair to the people who buy and sell these things. Global warming mania is driven by the idea that we're going to get so hot that it will be dangerous for living things. They don't bother to tell you that in recent years things have been cooling down, but you don't read that when people talk about and write about global warming. They tend to tell you that the 90s were the hottest decade on record. Of course, they don't bother to tell you the record only goes back about 100 years, and then they don't bother to tell you that that claim has been refuted after they had to correct their own numbers and show that the 1930s actually were warmer than the 1990s. And unfortunately for the theory of global warming, that doesn't jibe, because the increase in CO2, which the global warming advocates tell us is the problem, didn't occur until after the 1930s. So they've got a problem there, and that's probably why they don't talk about that much. The only place that we actually find that global warming is dangerous is in projections by computer models. And these computer models pretend that they can tell the future. They can't even tell the past. When they use the same models with the same formulas, they can't tell you what the temperature was or should have been in the 50s. It just doesn't match, and that's because there are so many factors that go into global warming and global temperatures and climate that these models can't even approach accuracy. They just don't take into account all the variables, such as cloud cover and water vapor, which are two things that the global warmist, when pressed, will tell you they don't understand at all, and they don't know if those things increase or decrease global warming. So these computer models that are the basis for the scare stories are completely invalid. They just are rough gauges at best, and they can't predict the past, let alone 100 years into the future. Global warming also suffers from the problem, at least the theory of it, suffers from the problem that CO2, which is a byproduct of using fossil fuels, is what raises the temperature. The problem with that is it's already been shown that CO2 generally is increased in the atmosphere after the temperature increases, not before. You can't very well cause something to happen if you come along after it's happened, but they don't tell you that either. But before the public has a chance to digest all of these counter-arguments, the global warming scare stories have gotten around the world, and they've prompted a lot of people to do a lot of silly things. Unfortunately, they have prompted people to do expensive things and things that infringe on your liberty. You might ask, when the global warmists advance their theories, well, who's going to profit from what you're advancing? And you'll find out that the governments generally will get more control over you and your life, and more control over your money. You will have less control over your life and less of your money left. And also, there are those who game the system, such as the ethanol people who received government subsidies and got filthy rich before people were wise enough to figure out that ethanol wasn't a good replacement for gasoline, because making it and using it causes even more CO2 than gasoline. No, these things are propaganda tools from people who want to control more and have more of what you have, and that means necessarily that you'll have less of your freedom, your control, and your own money. We have a column, yours truly, this Sunday on this subject, and it sort of brings us up to date on the current state of the scare stories. We recommend that you read it online here or in the paper. Thank you. I'm Mark Landsbaum.